Okay, we're going to have three people presenting three different ideas. The first concept is the concept of municipal solar, where we're focusing on putting solar on municipal-owned properties. It serves as 2 points of value right away. It helps reduce operating costs. It's a long-term strategy for municipalities if you invest into that for their buildings. But it also acts as a beacon for the rest of the municipalities, the homeowners, the businesses that live in a municipality, that solar is viable. So it's a message board that the municipal leaders can actually post out there for their community.
So another idea we had was to take advantage of the beautiful natural resources. I was really struck by the pool that the Lake Arthur Regatta seemed to get every year. And I kind of wanted to see more events like that happen throughout the year, some way of attracting people and businesses that revolve around an interest in outdoor recreation, bring all of those people together at Moraine State Park and maybe bring some interest and awareness to Butler County and to the park, and kind of open up that pool to maybe a wider audience.
All right, and we also talked about maybe coming up with a centralized recycling center, and not only focusing on plastics and glass and paper, but also things like Christmas trees and mulching them and making that available to communities for their gardens, and maybe even getting an incentive off of that as well, whether it be cash or tax. I thought we were supposed to have three.
Okay, so our main focus points for our presentation was mainly connecting the trails, parks, trail communities to Butler City and beyond, such as the neighboring communities, improving transportation and education training for new and renewable technologies and circular economy. And it was also our approach to welcoming climate refugees was one of our other points of interest. So I'll start off by talking about the interest in mass transportation or commuter service, There are 2 rail lines that run to Butler that also connect with the city of Pittsburgh. And I've always been a big proponent for having rail service up through the city of Butler. And so obviously with a lot of the growth in Cranberry, you have Harmony, Callery, Evans City, and Mars that are going to see a lot of influx of passengers that could utilize it rather than taking 79, so that's an option. And now that Butler County is now the the Pittsburgh Butler Regional Airport, there's a call for more growth for the airport, so there's a possibility of maybe adding some commuter airline service, possibly to Pittsburgh or Harrisburg, who knows, but those are one of the points that we focused on. So if anyone wanted to expand on what they talked about. Want to add anything?
Well, I think you've summarized it pretty well. One of the things what I was thinking was just transforming the past, gas producing, coal producing gas, and kind of owning up all the emissions and transforming into a community that could be welcoming be like a climate transformation community, have tourists to see how Butler County was able to transform its industrial past into a sustainable future.
I originally helped a little bit with the Freeport Trail, and at that time we were talking about extending the trail. Like it comes into Butler City, and then if you make like a left and sort of follow the Connoquenessing Creek and then go up to the Township Park and sort of connecting all the parks with the trail so that you have one big circle, and you can branch off of that trail like down to Cranberry or up to Slippery Rock. And people would come for that because they like to do that rather than have You know, you have the Freeport Trail, you have the trails in Alameda, none of that's connected. But if we could connect those, and then some other ideas were like maybe put some beaches along some of the streams. My nephew lives up in Minneapolis, Lake St. Croix Beach, and it's along the St. Croix River. Well, in his development, they put a beach right along the river. And I think we could do things like that to make this more of a destination place rather than just a place. So.
I just commented on water. The water runoff on West End in Butler, we really need to clean that up. And also the Connoquenessing, especially down in my area near Lindora, we need to clean all that up, a lot of litter. And also up by Montauk, the landfill is an overflow. That really needs to be cleaned. It is really, really terrible. So I was all about water.
We talked a lot about policy and how that pertains to different areas. We talked about CPACE a lot, which is the ordinance that might or may not be passed here that kind of incentivizes commercial businesses to use solar panels. We thought that was something that was important. The other policy thing we talked about was related to stormwater management in general and just how those policies seem to be outdated or not, like that they need to be more influenced from a grassroots level because some of those things don't make sense. And the same thing with building codes, they're just out of date and sometimes become an obstacle for green development. I know that in Crawford County, there's a lot of issues with you can't, permeable pavement, green roofs, and like tiny houses, that kind of thing. There's like really weird ordinances that kind of control those things. I know that's just outdated in general, a lot of our building codes. So that's one thing that is an issue. And what else? You want to touch on education stuff?
Thanks, Rachel. Two things that are a little more specific. One is the use of vacant factory space, vacant land, vacant warehouse space, inviting other companies, one could be Hydroblock, into Butler and using this as a base and exporting their technology everywhere, using their technology throughout Butler. You can see all the uses for it. Another is the use of a constant resource, and that's any flowing water. Any flowing water in the county could be used to create energy. The technology already exists, just need somebody to come in and capitalize on it, fine tune it so it belongs to them, patent it, use that as a resource from Butler or Butler County, and export that to other states, other counties, other countries. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay, Joanne.
Hi. So we talked about a lot of different things, and I'm going to look to my group members to mention some things too that we might forget. So everything in yellow was my idea, so I'm going to talk about those because those are the ones I'm most familiar with, and then I'll hand the mic over to Lyle. So one of the things that I mentioned that I think would be kind of pie in the sky idea, but it would be great to see. Developers come in, they take away our nature. We all know Butler County is rich in green space, and we all really love it and appreciate that. So when developers come in and take that away, that's a major thing to see and very heartbreaking. So it'd be really awesome to see a law that was passed that said if you're going to come in and take away our green space, you have to replace it in equal measure somewhere else, because that is very much needed. Development is unsustainable, completely unsustainable right now, and something has to be done to make sure that our nature stays and we retain our green space. Another thing I talked about, Allegheny County and Tree Pittsburgh does free tree giveaways to residents as a way to, at least for certain invasive species right now, emerald ash borer, a lot of the ash canopy has gone away. And so it'd be neat to see tree giveaways occur in Butler County as well to anybody who is interested in having a tree. That would also be a way to help to combat climate change, is because trees sequester carbon. And so the more trees that we have, the less CO2 that's out there. And so that's something that you and I can do right now, is go out and plant a tree, and that helps to bring down the effects of global warming. And also along those lines, planting native species as well. There needs to be a lot more outreach, just even beyond Butler County, that planting natives is so important. That is what makes sure that we can support our native wildlife. Right now, if you wanted to, you could go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy an invasive species. They are widely being sold. That's a major issue, something that I'm very passionate about. So I just had to put a plug in that in there for as well for our native species and why that's so important. I'll just talk about a few more things, and then I'll hand the mic over to T. Lyle. So something else that I would love to see, Butler County right now, in my opinion, is a ethnic food desert. My husband and I go to Pittsburgh all the time because they have the best restaurants. And you come up to Butler and everything is very Americanized. So it'd be nice to see more food be diversified. And I think the type of people that we see in our county would change as well. And I'm a firm believer in diversity across the board. And so it'd be nice to kind of see that change happen, and then what change could follow potentially. One more thing, let's see. So we talked a lot about the green industry today, and I thought it'd be neat if there would be some kind of free job training that would be available for people that could transition out of fossil fuel jobs and have that ability to transition easily into the green job sector. Because if that training is available and either free or at low cost, I think that green jobs in that industry would boost dramatically. So that would be really neat to see.
Thanks. Let's see. One of the threads that ran through our talking was history and tourism. And in terms of history, locating Butler County's 100-year-old farms to feature them and to create, a farm tour that would involve 100-year farms was mentioned. We talked about railroad and booze tours. Beer specifically. Butler has great breweries, and there's one in Mars and one in Slippery Rock and maybe more. So a beer bus would be a great idea. What? Darn. And also the same thing with a railroad. Friends of ours go on a wine tour on a railroad over in Ohio. Also mentioned was low-head hydropower, and also mentioned was hydropower in municipal water systems. It's always flowing. Why can't it earn electricity? We talked about Pittsburgh has listed Butler in the Rivers of Steel tour. So Butler being a steel milling area in history. We also talked about some of the history of the Connoquenessing, both protecting it and cleaning it up, and its history, which included ice blocks that were taken from it in the 1880s into Pittsburgh. And I threw in there Southern Butler County, as evidenced by the farm tour, has a fair number of good functioning farms that we could get Allegheny people to come and visit just the southern part of the county because it's close to them. And that would get Allegheny dollars deposited here, and then they could go back to Allegheny County.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So we really had a diverse amount of topics, and I'm going to try and narrow it down. We started by questioning, why are there so many Dollar Generals? I'm not sure how we started, but that's how we started, and that prompted us to talk about, the notion that we need to bring back small businesses. We were talking about how up in the northern areas there are no businesses, so they have to drive to Butler or other areas to get their food and supplies. And then in Butler we have the businesses, but they've been taken over by Walmart. And that's a mindset. So kind of one thing led to another. Like, why is that happening in our county? And that is convenience was one thing we talked about, and we're trying to think of ways of combating that. Education would be one avenue that we could try to work on, helping people to think differently, especially at a younger age. We weren't sure about the answer to this, but do they still teach home ec in schools was a question we talked about. We wonder if kids are coming out and even knowing how to cook and also how to farm. With the farmers, the average age being 58 and older is troubling. So we found a lot of problems, I guess, and in thinking of those, we were saying we should move towards having more gardens, more local community-based food sources, and working in the schools and educating people and being able to just have a healthier lifestyle, healthier eating. Kind of like what she said about the restaurants, it is a bit of a desert up here. And part of that we feel is lack of understanding and knowing the consequences health-wise. And then that spurred into the idea of supporting local businesses. We actually have 8 breweries in Butler County. So supporting those, buying local, just pushing that movement, which is already gaining traction, I believe, in Butler. Really into the beer bus. Yeah, the beer bus. and then after we talked about that, everything else was so. And then just all of this, all of these ideas are noble ideas, but if you need people to support them and to go to these places. When you talk about eating healthier, that's expensive, and you need to be able to bring people into our community. So the overriding theme of everything we talked about was how do we get people into Butler and entice people to moving here. So it was brought up that we need more affordable housing, and on the flip side of that, not only do we need affordable housing, but we need livable housing. So we need places where people would want to come and bring their families. And that ties into our school system. And there's just social issues in our county that need to be addressed, or all of these other ideas can't really move forward. And one of those major issues is the opioid problem, and just difficulties the schools had to overcome in the past few years. And then somehow we started talking about technology and cell phone use. So I'm not sure how that all tied in, but we were just saying that these are issues that we need to think about in order to get people to come to our county so that they can take part in our nice local gardens and different things that we could offer. But I'm sure I'm forgetting some things. So you want to add to that? Beer bus. The beer bus. We think that would be a real asset. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So you guys already covered almost everything that we had. One of the things I didn't hear was education. So we think that that's important to make sure that both higher education and the elementary and high school, that those kids are exposed to different environmental aspects, both the sustainability and just knowing that there is something, beyond the one use that you see. You don't have to have a plastic container. You can use paper, things like that. The other one, I think it was sort of mentioned, was parks and expansion of parks. We feel that that's important so that we get people connected to the environment. And with that, when you make that connection, you start to care about it more. And I guess, what are we going to do? 2 more maybe? All right, I'll hand it over.
So especially with parks, we proposed physically expanding Moraine's boundaries as well as Jennings, and also protecting ecologically important areas in the Slippery Rock, Connoquenessing, Wolf Creek, and Buffalo Creek valleys, because those are identified by the Audubon Society and the Conservancy as being very ecologically critical. Some of our other ideas included expanding and modernizing public transportation in Butler County. Cranberry, it's kind of odd. Cranberry is so populous and developed, but they have no public transportation. The only public transit system in the county is in the city of Butler. They just last year bought a nice, shiny, brand new fleet of compressed natural gas buses So they've probably got about 15 years of life in them. But hopefully we would like to see hydrogen fuel cell buses. We're hoping when those CNG buses, their life is ended, they can transition to a fuel cell, which is a clean option. And we also want to see municipal ordinances and regulations promote and encourage the implementation of renewable energy. Because in Butler Township, where we're at right now and where I live, they are actively discouraging renewable energy. We have an ordinance in Butler Township where your solar panels cannot be visible from the street. So if your house faces south and the street is running in front of your house, you're SOL, which my teacher said is surely out of luck. But in the same township, you can put a well pad wherever you want to put one. So that's kind of the basic gist of what we have. So thank you.
Okay, one of the things that I was very inspired about today was the word reimagine, because what that elicited in me was reclaiming, restoring, recreation and recreation, re-energize, re-educate, and totally rebirth our community. So what we are in a process is preparing for rebirth. And what that means is pulling people together like all of you to regenerate our area. So what I'm going to talk about is what we've decided to share with you as some of our major ideas today. One was wind farms, solar farms, working with officials within our government to support. We have so much land. We have available land that is calling for use and healthy use and non-toxic use. So we're looking to expand that, create community energy co-ops where people pull together their resources and create energy farms, solar or wind, depending upon where you need to put them or where it's best use of the land. Let's see what else. Food, we want to reimagine areas that need food sources, markets that would be attracted to places where there's desert, there's not many stores around or farms around or markets around. We're really trying to invigorate this whole area. And the way that you do that is to find passionate people with good ideas. And people who have passion have energy to make change. So this is what we're trying to do, is trying to make things exciting. People want to come to Butler because they want to connect the trails and hiking trails from Cranberry to Moraine and from Butler to Moraine. We want to bring people out. Most people sit behind a computer, and now we're going to say, come out and visit the treasures of Butler. The things that Butler has to offer are awesome. So we want to encourage that. Having food cafes for people to come and enjoy wonderful local foods where they can come out and have a little stroll on the patio, overlook a nice scenic view. Butler is rich in this. We just have to find the resources and the people to make this happen. One of the other things I didn't mention was having a task force to find funding for younger farmers to come to this area. In many places where I've been and I've talked to young people, they say, we want a farm. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know how to make it happen. But I heard their interest in wanting to connect with the land. So there's many opportunities here. Did I miss any that you guys want to share?
We have a number of trails and hiking paths, bike paths, and one of the things we talked about doing was connecting them so that you can go from the Freeport up to Moraine, and the other idea put forward to go around the different parks along those trails to have cafes, bed and breakfast, maybe a youth and elder hostel. Let's see, somebody mentioned a camp for disabled youth. So we'd like to see something like that occur. We have a lot of pre-existing infrastructure in that respect, but we could really expand it and improve it and make it very attractive.
One other area that I'm interested in is really educating people about the need for diversification in agriculture. Where I lived, we were surrounded by soybean fields and corn, and that was pretty much it. And I know T. Lau talked a whole lot about the need for education in farming and the need for that crop diversification. Someone came up with the idea that every high school person and college person needs to have an internship on a farm. Wouldn't Butler be a nice place for that? So you have another one?
I just want to say in closing here, knowledge is power, education is transformational. So we need to figure out how to bring all these great ideas to the people, help them understand the opportunities here for us to all move forward. Thank you.
All right, so one of our goals was more of a legislative goal. We said that we could change the zoning in certain areas from preserving a more homogeneous past to, creating a more heterogeneous future. And sort of what that means is, some areas are dedicated to only residential places or only commercial areas, but if you can actually make multi-use areas, like put your commercial areas in with your residential areas, they're more accessible to the population there, and they'll actually be able to walk there and use less or more sustainable ways of transportation to get to those places. So that was one of our ideas.
Another one of our ideas was promoting the parks and the services that we already have. So I just looked up right now, Moraine State Park, they don't have like an Instagram or something like that, but that's what people are on. You can hashtag and go into it and see what different people are doing. But if you had a platform where you could promote these ideas, that would be very important. And another idea with that was we were talking about if you had every business, every restaurant that's in Slippery Rock, for example, if they had a website at the bottom where you could go and these ideas were being advertised, like, oh, we have this walk on the 25th or something like that, and get everybody involved, then they would be very successful.
We talked about fresh vegetable farming for urban markets. I think people my age are interested in farm to fork, seeing the process of where your food goes to. I feel like in my parents' time, it was cool to see a McDonald's. I think it's cool for me to see a tomato come from a farm, have all the process it goes through, and like see it become like a marinara and then get canned. I think that process is really cool. I want to be involved in that. And I think that Butler County has a lot of opportunity for that. You can see in the farms, and being so close to an urban area, I think people want to experience something different. They want to experience something more natural.
Thank you very much. Sure. We have a
special request. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
One thing that we were remiss to talk about, maybe because we didn't want to push what we've done, accomplished, and what we're hoping to do, was the success of Glade Run Lake. We're both on the board of the Glade Run Lake Conservancy, and we took it from a mud hole to back to a lake again. And we continue to seek support to, we're entering a new phase where we want to become a conservation organization, a land trust, so we can add property and easements to the lake. expand the walking trail that we've already built, and we've felt this because of the incredible development that's happening in Middlesex Township, that also people of various political stripes have been able to slow down by demanding that the supervisors follow the letter of the law and not give variances to high-density developments.
Yeah, so just along those same lines, we were just at a board meeting lately, and we talked about how a lot of people know the struggles that went along with Glade Run Lake and how the lake was drained and now it's back, and everyone thinks the work is done, and it's not. I think a brand new chapter for the Conservancy is beginning, where we really are trying to continue to raise a lot of money. I cannot underestimate how much money we need, because we're going to be purchasing and hopefully acquiring 2,000 acres that surround the lake property, and that's not going to be easy. And so we need as much help as we can get to raise those funds and protect that land so that we can protect the lake, the water quality, and the habitat that's there for our native wildlife. So we just wanted to shamelessly put that plug out there, because it's a message that we are hard-pressed to get out. And so this is, I think, a great venue to let you all know that that's the new mission of the Glade Run Lake Conservancy. Thanks.